Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Radical Respect podcast. I'm Kim Scott.
And I'm Wesley Faulkner.
And I'm Ernest Adams.
So today I propose, if you all agree, that we have kind of a more focused conversation around what we were talking about last week, which is we sort of felt like there was some consensus, or maybe there wasn't, maybe it was a false consensus that bottoms up is a better way to manage than top down. What do y'all think of that?
Let's do it. I'm ready to get into this because I have strong feelings and opinions, which is perfect for a podcast.
All right.
Yes. And I'll just say thanks. We heard from a lot of people giving us some feedback around last podcast. So thank you very much.
Yeah, keep the feedback coming. Why don't you, Ernest, you want to summarize the feedback?
Yeah, I think two pieces of feedback. One was that our conversation was good, but we didn't really get into offering solutions for people who are operating in organizations that are not bottoms up. And what do they do? Where do they go? And I think people just wanted us to be to put a little bit more meat on the bone, which is what we're planning to do today.
We're going to try. All right. I think we should organize our conversation around 5 assertions. So I'm going to start with number 1. Open discussion and disagreement are better for innovation and economic growth and good relationships than orthodoxy or loyalty to a particular leader. Discuss. What do y'all think?
I have some opinions here. Yeah. I mean, when you're open to discussion, that means when you bring people who are from diverse backgrounds, we are all from diverse backgrounds. Even if you went to the same school, you all have different parents, you have different we are coming together at work where we can see things slightly differently. And just like the analogy of the people who can't see who are touching an elephant, they're able to describe different parts of an issue or a problem or a project in a way that allows for a clearer picture. And if you're able to define not only what you're working on, but what you're working towards and any issues, bring it out into the open, then you are not making compromises out of ignorance, meaning like we didn't know, so we did this. You're making judgment calls of compromises based on time, schedule, resources, or other things, so that if something changes, you're able to react as a team because they've been discussed.
I agree with that, Wesley. The only thing I would say to it is that there's an assumption in that the agreement that we all know what we're working on, that we agreed that those are the right things for us to work on. I just think in my last organization, it was very a top-down cascading effect on objectives, right? Yeah. So it started at the top and then it cascades down. The challenge was, though, by the time it got to the worker level inside the organization, they had no say, no input on anything that they were being given to work on. And I think a lot of times people felt resentful about that because I'm being held accountable to this metric, but I didn't have any say or any influence.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for that.
I didn't sign up for that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really interesting. There's enormous research on OKRs, objectives and key results, and that bottoms up metrics work you can't have no metrics. You want to sign up for metrics, but it's got to go bottoms up, not top down. And yet it's complicated to do. Like, it's hard to make that work.
It is, but I think it's possible to be able to say you can do both at the same time, which means bringing a team together and saying, okay, what do we want to accomplish next year or in the next 6 months or whatever time frame, and then begin to put some structure behind it, knowing what objectives are coming from the top down, so that you have both that exist, right? But I think a lot of people are so scared, at least in my experience, people were really scared to have that conversation, bringing people together to hear what they wanted to say, because they felt like that they would be told that they're not being loyal by just going with what's being told to them from above.
Yeah. So I have a specific example of how this worked. People wanted practical, tactical thoughts. So there was one time when I was working at Google, which we all agree is not perfect. Was not even then perfect, but it was pretty good. And I was making a mistake. I was doing top-down OKRs. I was like, and a guy who worked for me came to me and he said, you shouldn't be setting the goals and I shouldn't be setting the goals. I'm pushing this down to the people who are actually doing the work to tell us what the goal. We can be the editor, but we're not the author of the goals. And I thought I was really good at setting the goals. It was very hard for me to let go. And so the compromise was I got to set the theme, like, this is the year of the middle, or, this is the year of operational efficiency. And that was all I got to do. And then people were going to tell me what they were going to do towards that theme. And then I had to set my goals last, and the goals for the whole team last, after I saw what people, and it worked really well. And you know what? They signed up for more than I ever would have asked them to sign up. Like, they set more aggressive. So not only did they feel more empowered, we got better results. But it was a little chaotic.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead. Go.
I wanted to respond to what you were saying, Ernest, about like people at the very bottom not feeling like they have any say.
Yeah. And
I've been in that situation too. And the biggest part is that I couldn't even ask how the decision was made. Yes. So there wasn't even clarity from one level above me to at least explain why they believe that what I was doing was the best decision based on any information. So that lack of information really was frustrating. And I've worked in a lot of nonprofits as well. And it's similar to what you're saying, Kim. You can't just say, I want you to do this, because with a volunteer workforce, you get what you can get, but you just need to kind of have them understand where you're trying to go. And when I was in a work situation where I felt, this is one of those things, like, hopefully, if you're trying to say, what are the tools to help if you're in this situation? What I have done is write a document about how I would approach things and write down all of the assumptions I was making based on the information I didn't have that was never communicated with me, and of why I was making an approach. I was like, we're trying to move into this country because it's a strategic alliance where our competitors aren't there yet, or this is where our competitors are, or this is where innovation happens, or this is where we get the most transparent feedback, or this is going to be a low risk. Basically, I make all of the assumptions, but I make it clear of why my approach is heading towards those assumptions. And I put it out there, and then I publish it, and I send it over to my manager so they can either say, this is wrong, or why are you thinking that? And just that allows at least some dialogue on why things happen, or it really shows them that they didn't say the things that need to be said for me to be able to do my job appropriately. Like the decisions I need to make without information how that would change the way that I move forward.
So it's sort of like showing your work on a math test. If you show your work, then your teacher can explain to you credit where you're wrong, and they can give you partial credit. So that the next time you can get, you can get. The problem with that analogy is that I'm assuming there's a right answer, and often in these kinds of goals, there's not a right way or wrong way. We just need to get on the same page about how we're doing it.
Context.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like I make assumptions. So with these assumptions, this is the process I'm using. So they could say, like, your end result is not what we expected.
Yeah.
And that's, if you don't have information, that's bound to happen. But if you have a process that they're not giving you, but then you make it so this is how you're following it, you can just say, I'm just following the process that's logical based on these assumptions. Yeah. And they're like, you made the wrong assumptions then you could say, well, you had a chance to correct those assumptions and you chose not to.
Which I think is great advice, Wesley, because at the end of the day, I used to tell our interns all the time, like, if you get a summer intern project and you haven't asked why you're doing that project or how that project fits into anything else, right, you're probably not going to have a successful summer because you don't ultimately understand the context, right? Yeah. But if I speak now from the HR side of things, that's highly defensible too, Wesley. So if you have documented your work and you go to your manager and say, here are the assumptions I made, no one can ever come back at you and say, well, Wesley's he's being difficult and not wanting to do his work. That's not at all what you're doing. You're offering up a dialogue that exists, which I think is really, really smart.
I think here's another story about young Larry Page when he was a summer intern that he told me. He said he was a summer intern, I forgot where, but his boss told him to do this project and not only what the project was, but how to do it. And it was going to take him all summer. And Larry had a different idea for how to approach it, which would allow him to finish the whole project in, 48 hours instead of all summer. And his boss wouldn't hear of it. And it was like he said, it was such a frustrating experience that it was part of the reason why he went and started his own company. And he said, it was very heartfelt. I never want anyone at Google to feel that way. Mm-hmm. So if you work at Google and you're feeling that way, you can invoke the Larry Page story. I'm feeling just how Larry did. But I think it really is incredibly frustrating when when you're being told what to do and how to do it, and it makes no sense to you, and your boss is like, tough.
Yeah. Can I say another thing that's frustrating, and just this is relational to everyone who's probably in this situation, is that I suffer from this, is a burden of knowledge. And this is like how we connected, Kim, in the first place, is just once you know information, you can't unknow it.
Yeah.
So once you know, aren't you supposed to be getting ideas from everyone? Aren't you supposed to be doing either market research, or aren't you supposed to be organizing, or shouldn't we have objective ways of measuring this and not subjective ways? And so for those who are listening and are suffering with the burden of knowledge, I feel you so deeply.
Yes.
That's exactly how I feel. So my heart goes out to you.
Yes, my heart goes out. And I would say often, what's really important to remember when you have knowledge that other people don't, which you will, you have more knowledge than your boss does about what you're working on. I mean, I hope. And that is a frustrating experience. One of the most painful examples of this is the story of Boisjoly, who was the engineer who worked on the O-ring for the Challenger. I think it was Challenger, one of the two that blew up, but it was Challenger. And he went home the night before the launch, and he told his wife, "We decided to kill 7 astronauts today." He knew those O-rings were going to fail, and he had tried to say it in the meeting. But it was so later, and there was a retrospective, and he said, anyone with a modicum of common sense knows that rubber doesn't work worth a damn at freezing temperatures. But that's not true. People with common sense don't know that, And so I think part of what can be helpful in explaining to your boss why you think your goals, having these disagreements, is remembering that there are some things that are obvious to you that are not obvious to your boss, and approaching these conversations, try to take a deep breath. I know you're frustrated, but remember that you're trying to give a gift. You don't want to go in disrespectful. A disagreement is a respectful thing to do. It's not a disrespectful thing to do. But you got to go in being willing to hear the other side, because you also need to go in remembering that your boss may have a broader perspective than you do and may know some stuff you don't know too. And so the key thing is, here's my perspective. I want to know your perspective when you have these conversations.
Kim, what happens, and I kind of have an answer to this, but what happens in the situation where your boss doesn't care to know the rest of the information?
Doesn't want to know. Your boss is an absentee manager, and they bring me. And this is it
happens all the time.
Yes, in fact, the conference room where Mark Zuckerberg holds all his meetings with other people is called Only Good News. So he is not inviting disagreement, to put it mildly. Bring me solutions, not problems. And I will tell you, I was guilty. I made all these mistakes myself. But Same. Someone on my team came to me and asked me a really poignant question. He said, I know you want me to bring you solutions, not problems. When do we get to just talk? And like, how could you not melt at that? I'm like, we can just talk. Like maybe your boss truly doesn't care. But I think part of it is creating the space for your boss to be a human being. Because maybe they do care more than they show. Maybe they're stressed or busy or there was a CEO I was coaching, and he said somebody came to him and said, I have something I want to say to you, but you always look like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, and I don't want to interrupt, And so the CEO said to me, how can I be more approachable to my team? And we really thought about things he could do, like just the way he walked around the office, taking a few deep breaths and clearing his mind of any agenda and just wander sometimes, but it's really hard to do.
It is. Another thing to do with that is also just sometimes offer up to your team. Here are some of the things that are on my plate this week. I'm not asking you to help me solve them, but if you have ideas, I'm open to listening. But just so you know some of the types of things that are coming. And I think that also gives an opportunity to see the humanity in another person, to see, oh, wow, they are dealing with some things I never thought about.
Yeah. When I was working at Apple, I taught this class called Saying No in a Way That Strengthens Your Relationships, which is a good trick, And I remember when I was previewing the class with a very senior leader at Apple, and at first he was quite angry. He was like, I don't want people saying no to me. And I was like, oh, yes, you do. Let me explain. And he was open. I mean, I was able to change his mind, but it was a scary moment because I could tell he was pissed off at me for teaching people to say no to him. But I think the problem is that if you don't create the opportunity for people to tell you when things are failing, you will be the last to know, and you will know too late as a leader. And so it's a way of protecting yourself, telling your boss that you disagree and why. But if your boss really truly doesn't care, your boss cares about something, right? And so you got to figure out what your boss does care about and put it to them in those terms.
Yeah. And if
I was searching,
go ahead.
So no, you go first.
I was going to say, and if all else fails, just document that you try to articulate your point of view, and so that it's there, and you can say that these objectives were not ones I signed up for in the beginning, but I was told to do them.
Yeah. I had to look up this quote really quickly from Upton Sinclair. It says, it's gendered, but I'll read it as is. It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it.
Yes.
Well said.
This is a bigger problem in our economy. And I will say, there were a lot of things I didn't understand throughout my career because my economy depended on my not noticing things. I mean, my salary, my equity. There were all kinds of things, which is horrible to admit, but it's also, I think, useful to have some compassion for, I had a conversation with Stephen Levy the other day, who wrote this article, I thought I knew tech, I was wrong. And he said, look, it's easy for us to sit here and criticize these centibillionaires, but if somebody dumped $100 billion on me, would I get corrupted by it? Probably,
I'm just asking for a chance.
I don't want $100 billion. I'm gonna put that out there right now. I don't think it's good to have that much money. I don't want to be. I don't want to be tempted. Just for the same reason that I don't have a big hunk of chocolate sitting right next to. You can't resist. There's only. Lead us not into temptation. I was thinking about writing a book called that. It's hard to
I think there's a book that has that in there already.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know, Kim. I might still be with Wesley.
I want to focus on that one.
I might still be with Wesley. I want to. I'll go ahead and try it.
Yes. I'll be in the control. I'll be in the experimental. Yeah.
enough said, but the compassion is here.
Yes.
All right, so that's like number one. We believe that disagreement is better than orthodoxy or loyalty. And I will say that it is interesting. There was an interview with Alex Karp the other day, and I noticed that there is an orthodoxy coming out of the tech right. They're saying the same. They have a songbook, and they're not deviating from the message, and that is dangerous. And ultimately, it's dangerous for all of them, but it's the seeds of failure are sown in, I think, that kind of orthodoxy. All right, so we put this in a way that maybe is not the right way to put it. So let's debate this. A strong middle class is better than an oligarchy. What do y'all think about this? Is point number 2. We're moving on to point. We got 5 points to talk about. We'll go through the next few.
I think the strong middle class makes sense to me as long as there is a disclaimer that says that strong middle class means trying to get more people into that group and is not a fixed group, right? Meaning that by having more people having access to well-paying jobs or opportunities gives them an opportunity to enter that middle class, which I think that is where we're so far off from right now. And we got to get back to it.
Wesley, thoughts?
I think that I think it's from like the power of the majority should trump the power of the few. That instead of it being concentrated, the thing that in terms of when I hear strong middle class, whenever I heard that growing up, I hear it today. When to Ernest's point, when I grew up, we were not in the middle class, and it's almost as if we should give more to those who have what we didn't have, which would, in a zero-sum game, it felt like we were not able to participate, and it felt like, well, what about our needs? To kind of like raise our hand, and so, but it makes sense in terms of when people hear about it, they think about I am that, or we are the regular person, and so we should be able to have a voice and a say. So I understand the imagery of it. I think part of my own personal history conjures up different images when I hear those words.
So based on that, Wesley, I'm going to make an edit, and I'm going to say a participatory economy is greater than an oligarchy, or an economy where the elites, a small number of elites, get an unfair percent, or maybe it's like we need a shared scale.
Yeah.
You know, like we need.
Because I was going to say, what does participatory mean? Do I participate if I just get to have access to the lowest rung, or am I participating if I'm able to access multiple parts of the economy?
Everybody has a job that gives them a living wage and allows them to pursue their, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I just wish that the rules were all the same for no matter where you fit.
What do you say more about the rules were all the same?
Like some people get tax breaks than other people don't get. Some people get taxed at a different rate. Some people get a voice or meetings with people in higher positions of power.
Yeah.
Some people get it so that they can just basically don't follow the rules. That sort of thing. It's just when the rules are different, because they can make the rules sound really, really fair, but then they enforce it unfairly. Like if they said, for instance, someone is pulled over for speeding, and they could be guilty of speeding, but in an affluent neighborhood, some people who look like they quote unquote belong there may never get pulled over, but someone who looks like they don't belong there could be pulled over. So it's like, well, you were speeding, but so was the other person next to you. It's just that you're selectively choosing to disparage a certain group that you feel is not as worthy for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that the rules should be the same. I mean, I'm guessing you agree that we should have a progressive tax. Like the rich should pay more taxes, not fewer taxes, right?
Even if they paid the same percentage, I would be happy.
Oh, I wouldn't. I think the rich need to get. I think if we don't have a progressive income tax, then which we don't,
We don't.
or we have this weird kind of lumpy income. Like I pay 52%, and I'm happy to. I should pay 52%.
Does Elon play
No,
51,
no, no,
52?
no. He's not.
Like,
Like
yeah,
if he did too, then I'd feel awesome about paying.
exactly. And that's what I mean. Like maybe maybe it should be 78% or whatever but at least have the same rules.
Yeah.
I think that would be.
But I also think like my my brother is an Uber driver and he shouldn't pay 51% as a
right. Agreed. Agreed.
So yeah. So maybe participate. Okay. We need to, well, let's move on, but I'm going to keep editing. Middle class is important, but that does exclude the poor and we can't afford to do that. We need everyone to play a role and to be honored for the role that they play instead of dishonored.
Right.
And I think right now we have this caste system basically. So maybe
it's very relevant here in the Midwest, right? Because if you think about where manufacturing, a lot of the manufacturing in this company was created was in the Midwest, whether it be steel jobs or automotive jobs. And now many of the automotive workers can't even afford the cars that they're building.
Yeah.
Right. And so
that's going to be bad for the there was a I don't know if it's true, but there's a description of Ford walking through his factory with a union leader bragging about all these robots. And he said to the union leader, who's going to pay your dues? And the union leader said to Ford, who is going, or maybe it wasn't Ford, maybe it was some other automotive maker, but said to whoever this CEO was, who's going to buy your cars?
Yeah.
And it's a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
And something like 90% of increased spending came from 10% of the population. Like that's a big problem. That's not going to work. It just doesn't. It's not only is it unjust, it's ineffective.
Right.
All right. So point number 3, in political systems, democracy is better than autocracy. I assume there's not a lot to say there. And yet there's a lot to say there because it seems like not only are we moving in the direction of autocracy, we're moving in the direction of a theocracy, which I never thought was possible in the United States. But again, maybe that's part of my American arrogance coming through.
Well, can I ask a question? Are you talking about the current system, which is a current quote unquote system, where it's more representative democracy or a straight democracy?
I'm talking about I don't think.
Okay.
A representative. Maybe I should make an edit. A representative democracy instead of democracy.
The reason why I ask is because there are a lot of people who know a lot of things and they choose to participate. And then some people who don't know a lot of things and they choose to participate. And that's one of those things where the like IQ tests that they used to do for and poll tax and stuff like that to figure out who is worthy to participate. I'm not saying I'm leaning on, I lean on everyone should have the right, but that's the part of the democratic system, at least to make the case and making sure that if you are able to educate people on the issues that you're able to still mobilize, which I'm for.
I think one of the things that we saw, right, is how fragile the checks and balances that go along with democracy are in this country. And I think it is so important that those checks and balances exist to a way and they are codified down to the basic level so that they can't be overturned. Because if you have a Supreme Court that is aligned with or a board of directors that's aligned with the CEO, that's aligned with the senior leadership team, right, then you never have an opportunity to really see what a check and balance would actually do to help ensure that people's voices get heard.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no incentive to even consider it.
No.
Yeah. And if there's, it's very hard when you are in control not to try to remain in control, and being able to I think we have to force leaders to have some checks and balances on their power, because very few people are able to give it up unilaterally, of their own goodwill.
It's interesting you say it's hard for people to do that, Kim. But I don't want to make excuses for them either.
Yes.
Right. Because I think of someone like Martin Luther King Jr., who was not about holding on to power,
yeah.
right, but about how much could he disperse the power to grow the movement, right? And so those people do exist. I think our issue has been that we have promoted, celebrated, rewarded that behavior over and over again.
Yes.
And therefore people have conformed to it.
That's true. Yeah. Most people actually don't want huge amounts of power. In fact, most people don't want to have it, and they don't want anyone to have it. But we have a system that rewards. I think there's like this. There was a psychological study I saw that said roughly 15% of the population really does prefer autocracy. They really do either want the power, or they want somebody to have the power. And for some reason, we have a system that is rewarding that 15% and silencing the vast majority of people who don't actually long for the strong man.
But some of it could be the taxation thing as well. Like, some people don't want to tax rich people because they're like, I'm going to be that one day, and so I don't want to be taxed. It could be like, I want to be all powerful one day, so I don't want to have restraints on those power.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even like if you read history, my kids are, 16, and like I look at all the history is about the autocrats, the people who built these big monuments that, a lot of people died to create. Is that like, why aren't we studying other kind? There's a wonderful book called The Dawn of Everything that tries to take a look at other ways of being that have existed, but they don't leave behind big monuments, and we don't tend to study them. All right, point number 4. A market economy doesn't price, this is a little wonky, a market economy doesn't price positive or negative externalities. Democratically debated regulation is necessary. So now we're getting to the system. Is right now we have this economy where the top, in 2024, the top 19 families in the country made $1 trillion. And if you just map, I mean, mathematically, this is not really possible, but if you map how much richer the top 20 families in the country have been getting since 1970, by 2035, they'll have 103% of the US GDP. So that's a problem, I would argue.
Yeah.
I mean, wealth is different from GDP, and I don't want to go too far down that, but I do think that and this is the hard thing about this in this moment, is that I'm not sure this is the administration I want making these regulations or implementing the regulations. So it's a trickier moment in many ways than the one that FDR inherited, for example. We're going to have to have sort of mass movement, not Department of Justice led enforcement of some of these regulations or something. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Yeah. I'm seeing this with the AI boom that's going on.
Yes.
Where they said, let's go all in on this. And then they want to build these data centers.
Yes.
And the impacts on the local economy there is they're raising electricity rates.
Yeah.
They're lowering water quality or availability.
Yes.
But those knock-on effects or the secondary effects aren't leading as much. They're not priced in at all.
Yeah, they're not talked about.
Yeah.
And so I see that happening every single day.
Yeah, in Memphis, where I grew up, this is definitely, and it's so sad because there's these artesian wells, really high quality water, and it's getting destroyed.
Yep. It's what's happening in the Great Lakes here, right? They want to bring
Yeah.
data centers here because they want to capitalize on the water that's in the Great Lakes,
Yeah.
which will be bad for the entire country
Yes.
when we ultimately think
Yeah.
about that.
Disastrous for the
Disastrous. Yeah.
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 And then you hear like, we don't want to do this regulation and the environmental impact studies, and it's just slowing everything down. And it seems definitely as not thinking about how it affect people, and also the footprints of these facilities, like what needs to be torn down or what gets taken over from the ecological point, but also those are locations that are going to be mostly automated. So there's not going to be jobs for people after they're constructed. And what impact does that have on an economy where it's taking a lot of square feet in area where it's reduced the amount of tax base that the municipality has because of that at the same time.
Yeah.
Which speaks directly to this. I mean, when we see big data centers or big plants or big factories being built, it is the community bargaining agreements are typically a big thing that goes along with that. So the community has a voice in the number of jobs and how things are going to happen. But those are being actively subdued in most states now, so that the community bargaining agreements don't have a leg to stand on, right? Which is removing exactly what we're talking about, that regulation, the check and balance. Yeah.
I feel like one of the things that my parents pounded into my head is you got to clean up your own mess, and I think that's not baked into the way our economy works. Companies do not have to clean up. They're and we see it in industry after industry after industry.
Yeah.
So and that's externalities.
You can pay your CEO $1 trillion.
Yeah,
and don't have to do and don't have to think about any of the harm that's going to create in creating that.
Look at the PFAS, like the forever chemicals that are in everything.
Toilet paper.
Yeah.
I mean, really, this is a PSA that
all the electronics that have batteries, but we don't have battery disposal readily available everywhere. It's just that it goes on and on.
Yeah. All right, which brings us to point number 5, kind of. Science and technology offer massive positive externalities and therefore need federal funding. Like there are negative externalities. We need to focus on those. There's also, we need to share the scale. We need to figure out how to share the scale. I think the promise of the industrial age and the promise of tech is that we create opportunities, we create wealth by scaling things. But if we don't share that wealth, it's self-destructive. What should be a positive externality disappears.
Yeah, I just, the thing that stands out to me on this one is the inequities that we have within our country and our education system, right? Where some people have access to understand and study science and technology, and some people don't. In some cities, we can't even get students to school every day. To graduate, right? And so therefore understanding that. And I think the more we say, again, not this government should have a role in funding the science and technology, because I think it would offset and it would keep us off kilter, but a fair and balanced way of thinking about this so that everyone has a democratized access to it. It's important.
And I think that science and technology are not the be all and end all. You should be able to have no interest in science or technology and make a good living. Like one of the things I love to do more than anything else is be in my yard weeding. And I would like to think that people who want to do that work can afford to do that work. But it's very difficult, at least where I live, to be able to afford to do that work. And that's important work. Like, otherwise neighborhoods burn down, and
But this goes back to our question in terms of what does participating in the economy look like? Because to your point, Kim, right? Like, yes, I love to garden as well and be out in my yard. But the people what we pay them has to be increased in order for them to have, by a lot, in order to compete with these jobs that are coming from a science and technology point of view, so that all are participating in the economy in an equal way, or not equal, but in a way that serves them.
allows them to
Mhm.
pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like you should be
Yeah.
able. I think in Silicon Valley, where I live, a couple of statistics here. One is that 1 out of 3 people depend on federal funding for their food or their housing, or government subsidy, for their food or their, like 1 out of 3. And to me, and meanwhile, I think 5 of the 10 centibillionaires live here, and Zuckerberg funded this school in East Palo Alto, which is a neighborhood that has not participated in the wealth that has been, and then he just shut it down randomly. Meanwhile, he's running a tiny little school in his house, like, and driving his neighbors crazy. Like that to me is an example of helping 15 kids and refusing to help thousands, tens of thousands
Absolutely.
of kids. Yeah. And not everybody has to be good at these stupid standardized tests, and not everybody should have to go to. You shouldn't have to go to college to live a good life. Like college is awesome for the people who want it. I'm reading this really interesting book on the history of liberalism and like what it has meant. And for too long, there's this like weird. Liberalism was around, the notion of the liberal arts was that you need to have free time. You need not to be burnt. You need to inherit money to have enough free time to have this liberal arts education. And meanwhile, there's this, at the same time, this notion that people who do work for a living are somehow inferior. Like that's part of the problem, I think, of liberalism in a nutshell, right there.
Yeah, I think it's like the poor people get blamed because they couldn't figure it out to get out of poverty. And I think that's a big theme as well. I wanted to touch on the science, on the parts that it could touch our lives, even if you don't participate directly. Because like, let's say DDT, we know science brought us DDT, but also science was a label to understand the problems with DDT. And so it's not, we got to keep going, even if we think we have an answer to make it better. Mm-hmm. But also science allows for us who benefit from it indirectly to make sure that we don't see some of the negatives, because it's really hard to measure a negative. Like when doctors didn't know exactly how germs worked, and they would go from examining dead bodies to delivering babies, and then the the death rate would go up, the mortality rate would go up. Then once science understood the link between that, that was able to help people everywhere. And so science can help us, even if you're not in the science field. But so much of our life touches science to the point where it can have an outsized effect on how we live.
Yeah. Everybody who's good in math should have the opportunity to study math, but not everybody should be forced to study math.
Right. Yes, exactly.
It's true. And Wesley, the thing that just comes to mind as you talk about that I think is really important is that as we do more with science and we do more research, right, everyone should have access to the outputs of that, right?
Yes.
And not just a select
few.
Because I think that's what we continue. I won't even go down the path of our healthcare system, but you go down the path and it matters what hospital you go to, right? Because if those physicians were recently at conferences to get the information, and another hospital they weren't, then what good is the science if we're not getting it out to all?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like government funded science, you pay to go to school, you pay to study, you write a paper that's funded by the government, and then you don't have access to it unless you pay to get access to your own research.
Yeah.
If you want to share it with your family or something like that. That's the way that information gets paywalled, even though the government and us, the people, pay for it. Makes it hard.
So Kim, I got to go, and Wesley, I got to go back to number one just for a second, because there's something that I did not say that's been kind of eating away at me when we were talking about open discussion, disagreement compared to orthodoxy or loyalty to a particular leader. And that is that there are some demographics of people who loyalty is what's taught in their culture.
Yes.
right? Be super loyal. Understanding that that relationship with your boss is one that is a sacred one and one that should be protected at all costs. And I think, so I agree fundamentally with open disagreement and discussion is important, but I also would hate to make that statement without understanding that for some people, that is a very big hurdle to jump. And we have to figure out how to get people there to understand that expressing how you feel is not being disloyal.
Yes.
Right. But it is being loyal to yourself versus loyal to another individual.
And loyal to the leader. I mean, if a leader is marching off the edge of a cliff, loyalty does not mean let them march off the edge of a cliff or follow them off the edge of. That's not loyalty.
Well
that
said.
you know. So maybe we need to change the word loyalty.
Yeah,
I'm going to think about that. All right, as always, talking to you two brightens my week, brightens my month. So thank you so much for the conversation. And if you're listening and you like what you hear, rate and review us. If you don't like what you hear, we want to hear about it. So
let us know.
What's the email address, Wesley? Do you remember? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Hello, is it?
Yes.
At radicalrespectbook.com.
Hello at radicalrespectbook.com. We're going to come up with a shorter. All right. Meantime, thank you all so much. And we'll talk next month.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.